This was my main thought at the 10-hour mark of Silksong. At this point, I had traversed the Marrow, made it to the heights of Greymoor, and discovered the horrors of haunted Belhart. But frustrated by my continuous lack of shards, too few rosaries, and a resolute determination to not use a compass or pin, I came to a dilemma. Do I turn the lights on? Hear me out. Silksong, the original Hollow Knight, even Elden Ring, are not too different from walking around a house. Not your house, mind you. You don't know where things are. Of course there's a natural, intuitable layout, but until you've felt your way around, you don't know where everything is. The turns in the hallways, the corners where you can stub your toes, the chairs where you can sit and rest a while. But isn't the point to find these things for yourself? What I mean is, can it be useful to learn more about a game on your first playthrough? To avoid eating on an empty stomach? What if you know exactly where to go, but are unsure of just how far you need to walk down that dark hallway? Can it be better to know the path ahead, the traps and turns, instead of fumbling around in the dark? How do you know when to turn on the lights? Or even if you should? Should I have waited to spoil Silksong? My first playthrough of Elden Ring was done 6 months after launch and lasted only 20 hours. Now, be not misled. I completed the whole game on that playthrough. It took me over 100 hours, but my first playthrough only lasted 20. The first 20 hours were spent in 3 main places: Limgrave, Western Caelid, and Stormveil Castle. After 20 hours of combing over the starting area, overturning what I thought was every rock in Stormveil, I stepped out into Liurnia, got to the first grace, and decided, after spending so many hours on caves and catacombs, and not knowing which ones were worth it or not, I began the long process of reading wikis and watching guides. Shout out to my boys, Vadi and Rusty, in Illusory Wall. Turning on the lights in the dark house made me realize just how much of the game there was, and gave me the confidence to know what I was doing. But it did not rob me of the experience of doing it all myself. Something similar happened to me during my first playthrough of Dark Souls. As mentioned in my first video, I got stuck in Undeadburg and then took a break from Dark Souls, only coming back once I had downloaded the entire game into my brain. But that's not really how it happened. At first, it was just one switch: how to sell items and general world layout. Then, later on, I got stuck in Anor Londo, carried by overconfidence and a +5 Zweihander, because I'd never been to the depths. I didn't realize how much I didn't know, so once again I stopped, turned on the lights, and learned more. After that, I beat the whole damn game. Like Elden Ring, it was about 20 hours before I decided to flip the switch.
Well, that's spoiling! What about discovering the game for yourself? Why are you ruining your first playthrough?
See, the thing is, I didn't. People generally place a lot of importance on having fresh experiences.
You'll never forget your first time.
Yeah, I'll never forget my first time getting one-shot by Havel the Rock, or completing Murkwater Catacombs and being rewarded with the Engvall Ashes. At this point, I didn't even know how ashes worked, how powerful they were, and I didn't even have the bell, let alone the FP to use it. On my first playthrough, Engvall was left in my inventory. First times are important, but I don't want to blindly fumble around in the dark. Nobody masters something their first time, and I derive more satisfaction from knowing I'm doing the right thing, feeling myself get better, than hoping I'm on the right path. I'm still doing it myself. Is it still spoilers to know a couple hours down the line, Renala can restore wasted level ups? Is it spoilers to know undead enemies are 40% weaker to holy? Is it spoilers to know just how much of the game is locked behind the first Radahn fight? Or that you need to get to Altus to even face him? A quick note. 8 years after lighting my first bonfire, I decided to complete Shadow of the Erdtree
completely blind. No stone unturned, no boss left undefeated, and what did it get me? Sighs, gasps, walls of text between me and my friends marveling at the world. They really cooked with this one. And a whole lot of frustration. Spending hours backtracking, trying to find the one Shadow Tree fragment which I didn't find, wandering around the Southern Finger Ruins, because I hadn't even met the one NPC that gave me the one item that made those areas worth anything. Yet, I still got chills when I went below the Cathedral of Manasmeter and heard that eerie twine. But was it worth walking in the dark for hours before I finally ran into a wall?
How many hits does it take to beat Nightmare King Grim? This question rolled around my head during my version voyage into Hollow Nest at the recommendation of a certified Silksong Hopium Huffer. Today, Alex is vindicated and very happy, little and less for me. While Hollow Knight's Souls-like and Metroidvania inspirations create a superlative product, the game is a veritable anthill. It is literally about slowly uncovering the map, unlocking new movement abilities, and then discovering more areas you missed because of the lack of said movement abilities. Hollow Knight requires players to construct a mental map of Hollow Nest, slowly turning on the lights as you travel deeper into its tunnels. Hell, Cornifer in his humming scream, "Light switch here!" But while this is rewarding, it wasn't for me.
Stop. Let me be clear. Hollow Knight is hard, but that wasn't the issue.
Be not misled.
I beat pre-nerf for Dawn. I beat Sekiro's Moral Journey, the Radiance. All of these have been failed by my hand. But as someone once said, going through a video game is like going through a club where you have to fight the bouncer to continue. However, in Hollow Knight, you realize that the next area requires a thing like a double jump or some other movement technique, which you have not yet got. Hollow Knight's intentional obstruction of information leads to intentionally darkened hallways, and this gets tedious. Doubly so for the bosses. Unlike From Software's titles, Hollow Knight's mobs and bosses lack health bars. You gauge your own damage by figuring out how many hits to beat an enemy, 5 to 4, 3 to 2 after every upgrade. But boss health is also obscured. While they do stagger 3 times during the fight, you never know just how far you are from victory. In a Souls game, I know exactly how much damage one of my hits deals and how many are needed for victory. And if I die close with victory in grasp, I know that I can lock the fuck in, grind out another attempt, and win. But in Hollow Knight, you get none of that information. You just have to get good, repeat, and suddenly you'll have an abrupt victory.
So, how many hits does it take to kill Nightmare King Grim? With a base health of 1500 and assuming a fully upgraded nail which deals 21 damage, 72 hits stand between you and victory. With Unbreakable Strength's 50% damage boost, that goes down to 48 hits. Then stacking that with Shaman Stone and some cheeky Abyssal Streaks or Shade Souls for 120 and 40 damage apiece, the fight seems pretty easy. But of course, remember that Nightmare King Grim deals double damage. That seems like such a nothing burger these days. And all these numbers are unknown to the players who have not browsed the wikis. Everything I've mentioned, from the exact effects of the charms to damage to health bars, are hidden from the player. This was my issue. Hollow Knight as a game is too fucking dark.
Let's play a little game, a little puzzle perchance. When did I start looking things up in the original Hollow Knight? Was it after getting the bad ending? Was it once I fought the Grim Troop? Was it once I got the Dream Nail? Was it? No. It was once I got to the City of Tears, the halfway mark in the game. But I did finish the game. I beat the White Palace, I defeated the Nightmare King, I slew the Radiance. Undoubtedly, Hollow Knight is a good game. Gripes and all. I trust Team Cherry. But I questioned if I would play Silksong when it came out. Would it live up to the hype? How could it be really that different from the original? How many of these base gameplay issues would remain?
Holy sh**. They really cooked with this one. Okay, enough dallying. Silksong is good. Like, really, really good. It's also much harder. Advanced movement means advanced combat. The Knight at the start of the game can survive 5 hits. At her strongest, Hornet can also survive 5 hits, but only because everything deals double damage.
Don't worry, we'll talk more about difficulty, but let's be clear, Hollow Knight is a good game, but Silksong is so much fucking better.
Silksong binds additional movement abilities with character and narrative progression. Hornet learns sprinting from Weaver Idols, gains her Drifter's Cloak from helping Seamstress, and Silksong arises at an important story moment. The placement of new areas locked behind unrealized movement abilities shows Team Cherry's familiarity with level and enemy design. I remember fighting that big ant guy in the far fields and realizing that while I could grind out the fight until victory, his moveset would be trivialized by a dash. I then got it less than 30 minutes later. Systematically, Team Cherry tries to undo every single shortcoming with the original Hollow Knight. Are the movement controls not as consistent as players want? Make mantling part of your initial moveset. Pair Hornet's dash with a sprint, freeing up an additional key binding and circumventing the Knight's rather boring C-dash ability. Glides and grapples unlock yet unseen platforming problems. And then, there's the fucking double jump.
Oh yeah, the double jump. I was under the impression that because space was bound to jump and glide, that there would be no double jump. Until I got to the top of Mount Faye, and oh, there's a double jump too. And then the claw line is just chef's kiss. I fight bosses and I think about what Team Cherry wants me to do.
Silksong solves Hollow Knight's build optimization issues as well. Too many charms or auto-includes. Unbreakable Strength, Shaman Stone, Quick Slash. Players select to sideline personal expression for elite performance. Silksong's crests and color tools solve this. While certain tools are also auto-includes, looking at you, Magnetite Dice and Sawtooth Circlet, changing the allotment of tool types based on crest and bind abilities incentivizes more build variety. But to get your build online, you still need to find every piece, to know where every part is. Know that you might not get the Architect crest until late in Act 2, or even find the Shaman or Witch's crest. Oh yeah, it's at this point you need to mention, Silksong might be even more opaque than Hollow Knight. Not only does it hide health, damage, and the map like you in the original Hollow Knight, but more tools means more things are obscured from the player. Over 20 hours in, I knew where I was supposed to go, but I didn't know just how much I was missing. It started with phoning a friend, asking which paths to go down. Was it worth my time completing Mount Faye's parkour gauntlet? How much more of the game did I have to go through to upgrade my needle? I knew I was missing something, but I was unsure of just how much. So after completing the Cogwork core, I started turning on all the lights.
When I started looking up things in the game, I thought I was at the 80% mark, maybe the 75% mark, but I was closer to the 2/3 mark. I hadn't even beat Great Taste of Farloom or fought Roll, and while I don't have footage of me looking up on the wiki for the first time, be contented with this recreation.
Cool. Can you give me a sec?
Alan, we are so fucked.
Truly, in great knowledge comes great sorrow. After wandering around Farloom's dark hallways and passageways, I turned on the lights and realized not just what I had missed, but there were whole bosses, acts of the game, and movement abilities that I hadn't even considered. Don't get me wrong, I was still invested in completing the game. I knew I wouldn't stop before I slew Grandmother Silk and the second and the third lace fights. After the highs of the Last Judge, the Choral Chambers, and the Clockwork Dancers, I realized that I loved Silksong. The music, the art direction, the gameplay, it was one of the best games I'd ever played. But I turned on the lights, I looked ahead, and I wondered if Act 2 and Act 3 would live up to these experiences. Spoiling the game cursed me with more expectations. It took away the wonder, but replaced it with something else.
What do you even get out of spoiling a game? Understanding level layout, targeting specific tools for your build, exiting exploration and skipping into skill building. I enjoy mastery, understanding the intricacies of item interactions, damage data tables, knowing all of a boss's damage windows, but none of this, especially in Silksong, comes from a first playthrough or even subsequent ones. Flint Slate's damage multiplier, tool, pouch upgrades, the interplay between enemy defense modifiers and your needle level, none of these can be intuited through gameplay. Turning on the lights, looking at the data tables is the only way.
Game time.
Again.
Can you guess which of my Elden Ring playthroughs was my favorite? Was it my first playthrough, blind until the 20-hour mark, and then settling on Faith Strength? Was it my second playthrough, a atypical Dex Int playthrough? Was it my third? To clarify, come here. My favorite playthrough of Elden Ring was my third. After I stopped halfway through the playthrough and Sewer Moog, played Sekiro, studied stance breaks, and came back, and I went from struggling against the bosses to chain stance breaking them. Hell, I didn't even enjoy Shadow of the Erdtree that much on my first playthrough. It was only on my second playthrough that I really recognized what was worth doing, and that the bosses there were some of From Software's best. Save a few of them. By learning more about the game, by turning on the lights, I stopped worrying if I could beat a boss, or if I could do something well, and started focusing on how I could do it, how I could show my mastery within the game.
In Hollow Knight, turning on the lights allowed me the clarity of a second or even third playthrough. I sprinted around the map, acquiring my missing pieces and then locking in, fully devoting myself to assaulting areas and beating bosses. I enjoyed Hollow Knight's last third the most, despite in retrospect thinking it was one of the weaker parts of the game. The enjoyment only compounded with community content from creators like Rusty, Fireborn, and Blue SR, which made me understand even more beyond my own abilities. This exact pattern repeated itself in Silksong, finding all the fleas I could before Act 3, wikis providing locations for Pale Oil, freeing the prince so I wouldn't have to conquer the Coral Tower, made me enjoy the game much more because I knew exactly what I was missing and how to find it. I just knew what to do.
I'm glad I spoiled Silksong. Would I have been able to find most of the game's secrets, fully upgrade my needle, and fight the best bosses if I had not looked it up? I mean, probably, but I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. Turning on the lights forced me to focus on getting better instead of fumbling around in the dark. Paths progression came with spoilers, but I still had to get good enough to beat the bosses myself. And even after all that, I still want more Silksong. When there are expansions, which have been announced at the time of recording, I will play them, as well as the Pantheon challenges. The bosses are much better than Hollow Knight's. I realize Silksong is one of the better games that I've ever played. I'm confident it will win Game of the Year. I should probably notice that this was recorded after, and no, it did not. Q Expedition 33. Even before playing Silksong, I knew I would spoil it, that I would not do a completely blind playthrough. It's just a question of when. And I have been validated. Silksong was more fun with the lights on. I am glad I spoiled Silksong. Thank you for watching. So, thank you for watching. I know it's been a long fucking time since I've released a video, but this one's come out now. Hopefully I've been getting this out before the end of the year, and I will continue making videos. It just so happens that this is what happens when I don't prioritize writing the script and keep on playing Silksong because it's a really long game. However, I've already collected footage and played the game for the next video, and I'm actually really excited for that one. That one will probably be a more return to form for my traditional style videos and more of like a bit of a heavier topic. So that will really speed up the process for the next one, but I'm also starting grad school in January, so we'll see how things go. But there will be more videos. I like this, and speaking of which, thank you so much for 500 subscribers. When I published my first video over a year and a half ago at this point, I had no idea that I would even get to 500 subscribers, but thank you all for sticking around with me through my weird upload schedule and then also the topics I'd like talking to. It really means the most, and I'm very grateful for all of you. Elsewise, I do have some other topics that I want to cover in videos, namely more long form with me just talking in front of the camera, but those are very extensive to script and research. I have really to figure that thing out, and also how long I want those videos to be, because some of the topics I've researched and drafted up outlines and some scripts for it would make the video like insanely long. So if you're interested in that, just like let me know. Elsewise, the world keeps on turning, yada yada, same life advice. Get your shit together. Don't use AI also. Fuck AI. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and live well.